was awarded a scholarship to pursue actuarial science in the United States. Now, while I was there, I managed to study abroad in Brazil, France, and also to represent the US delegates to a leadership conference in Uganda. In between my financial math classes and my statistics classes, I was signing up for every other classes that intrigued me, from ice skating 101 to philosophy to Pilates. So I was also teaching 2 freshman courses on sustainability and global citizenship. Now at this point, I really thought I had all the choices in the world on what I could be. Graduated at 23, I was ready to come home to take on the world from there. But what I didn't know was that this was what was waiting for me back at home. Based on the 2012 PISA results, 43% of Malaysian students did not meet the minimum requirement for science, 44% for reading, and 60% for mathematics. 1 in 100 of our students could solve complex problems, in comparison to 1 in 5 from our neighboring countries. Now, how would you feel to be young, having traveled the world, having received one of the best education one could ask for, having experienced so many extraordinary findings, having developed a crazy amount of confidence and hope? How would you feel to be all that and then come home to your beloved country to these figures? When did this happen? Was it when I was away? Because I sure don't remember having been concerned about this before. Now, this ignorance to education inequity was what led me to ask myself a few questions. So what if I had traveled to every continent in the world, read every book, if my fellow Malaysians were still subjugated to these numbers? What do all of my experiences from a quality education mean if it was powerless and if it couldn't change anything? If I had thought that I had all the choices in the world, then what do these kids have? Part of the reason why I joined Teach for Malaysia was because I was in denial. I wanted to validate those numbers for myself. But at 24, I didn't have the money to build anything, nor did I have the power to change anything. All I had was the education that was given to me. And this was when I decided to go back to school as a teacher. But nothing could have prepared me for school. Not even my self-proclaimed charm, which I initially thought could have probably helped me get by with anything in life. If I had thought that having secured an overseas degree and then left a consulting job in a city was going to be impressive enough for my kids to sit down and listen to me, I was wrong. So down I went from the high horse I galloped into school that first few days of becoming a teacher. I was walking into classrooms where every single student was sleeping. I was walking into classes where 16-year-olds were still struggling with reading. I was going into a class where a boy was writing his name upside down because he had to refer down to his name tag that is sewn firmly on his chest. And then it hit me. These numbers, they were talking about my kids. I was looking into the faces of 800 students who will one day replace the 800 people who are currently running the country. It completely broke me, for in their faces, I saw the future of this country. My school is located in the middle of a developing town in Penang, where high-rise buildings are slowly blocking the skies, new railway tracks are covering the path, developers are trying to fit in every corner of the town with new posh residencies, and high-end malls are blooming. My school and my kids, we are in the middle of all this, able to observe the future come to life, and yet, out of 2,300 schools in the entire country, my school is in the bottom 50. So what happened? How did a school that is barely 14 years of age drop to the bottom 50 so soon? We needed an intervention. But at that time, I knew I was facing 2 big challenges. Challenge number 1 was that I was assigned to teach lower form high school history. And that means I only get to meet my kids 2 hours out of the 33 hours they spend in school on a weekly basis. That comes down to 6% of contact time. And that was only one subject out of the 7 or 8 other subjects that seem a little bit more pressing than learning about dead people and past glories. Challenge number 2 was that I knew the teaching and learning process had to change. Teachers, they tend to teach the way they were taught. And in the 21st century, knowing a fact doesn't hold that much value anymore when your smartphone can easily answer anything for you. How you use that fact to solve that problem is what is crucial in this century. My kids needed a bigger reason to be in the know. They needed to develop a sense of purpose and a love for learning. This is the classroom that I was teaching in last year. As you can see, we have the basic amenities like the blackboard and the chairs and tables, only they're not being used as such. It's a much better scene this year thanks to a better school management, but that's a whole different TED Talk for another day. But what I knew then was that my kids was not facing a very conducive environment to learn. And because I wanted to create a better bond with them, I opened up my living room every single night for an entire year for any student to come for extra help. So every single night, I would have 20 to 30 kids coming to my living room studying math and English. I managed to form a really strong bond and trust with a group of students who really wanted to see change happen in their life. At the beginning of my second year as a teacher, which was this year, I found out that the community hall near my school was not in use most nights. Now, this hall is located in the middle of the Blok A flats. That's where the name Blok A came about. With a size that is probably 10 times bigger than my living room, I was hoping to reach out to more kids. As it was planned out, Blok A will increase my contact time from 2 hours to 8 hours across the week. This is double what the core subject teachers get in school, which teaches languages and math get in school. So Blok A runs 3 nights a week, 2 hours per session, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And the location was perfect. Not only will my kids be seeing me in school, I am now constantly in the vicinity of their home, which means I get to be closer to their families as well, which is always a good thing when you're a teacher. So first challenge solved, I get to spend more time with my kids. The second challenge about changing the teaching and learning process was the tricky bit. Now that I had all their time, I needed to make sure that we were spending it with quality. I needed to make sure that we had efficient classroom sessions and not have Blok A just end up as another remedial program. But at the point of finding this out, truth be told, I had no idea how to change that. So on the Monday of opening night, Blok A started on Monday. About 30 kids showed up at the hall. It was a familiar 30 kids who have been coming to my house every single night the previous year. Thanks to Encik Aziz, the community manager, he managed to secure a few tables and chairs for us to use. We had a slight increase on Wednesday, probably in the 40s, but I was really glad to see new faces who decide to join us at the hall. On the Friday, however, arriving about 15 minutes earlier for our third session, I was met with 126 kids outside the hall, chattering away excitedly, complete with their book bag, waiting for me to open up the door so that class could start. As dramatic as this might sound, that single Friday was a turning point of my career as a teacher and changed the way I looked at my kids completely. Now, knowing that I could not have possibly handled 126 kids on my own, ranging from the age of 6 up to 17, the 30 kids closest to me stepped up and waited for my instructions. And in less than 5 minutes, they dispersed into the crowd, and slowly, I saw small groups forming on the floor with a single student leader in the middle. And this is when, for the lack of a better word, magic happened, and they started to teach. They were taking over my role as a teacher, mimicking the way I would quiet down a class, giving out praises to students who were answering questions. They put one hand on their hips and started teaching the multiplication table. Students were completely engaged in less than 10 minutes, when it took me months to have that same amount of attention on me during my first year as a teacher. Classroom management was going so well that the last 10 minutes of wrapping up, the students who were helping me out stood with me in front of the hall, and together we went, "Class!" And almost immediately, every other student dropped whatever they were doing, eyes on us, and answered yes. This is it. This was their purpose. If it's not for the aces the society expects them to score, then it is to help their community get better. They will no longer pass an exam for themselves. They will pass an exam because they are their community's savior. From looking like a remedial program, Blok A became the training ground for stronger kids to help the weaker ones get better. By putting more responsibility on the students, responsibility beyond their imagination, it created a sense of ownership and accountability to their learning. Younger students start to look up to them. And junior tutors, they do not just end up being just a tutor. They became the biggest supporter, rooter, cheerleader of all the students they taught. I would like to share with you this picture of a session we had at Blok A. Now, this is not a picture of me assessing a really cute boy named Junsin, 7-year-old. This is a picture of Hazik, a 14-year-old junior tutor. And the whole time I was assessing Jinsen, I had no idea that Hazik was sitting behind me with expressions and gestures until I saw the video after class. Now look at Hazik's proud expression once Jinsen could finally introduce himself in English to me. And Hazik is not the only tutor who became very proud of his student. During our tutor training sessions at Blok A, we teach each other how to encourage each other instead of putting each other down. We use words of encouragement all the time. Good job, try again, don't give up. Children, they don't learn kindness through reading or through memorizing or through merely talking about it. Children learn kindness through feeling it and then actively act upon it. I no longer have to promise them the dream of the big city. They are needed here in their own community. Without realizing it, their own learning has been contextualized. Blok A and its kids have come a long way since then. We have had more than 80 sessions in the last 9 months. And in 6 months, Blok A students were scoring 23% higher in mathematics compared to their peers at school. We have reached out to more than 200 students in the community. The kids who are trained to be tutors, they know exactly what to do when I assign them a student. They would get a mini whiteboard and a marker pen and they start to teach. They go beyond what is in the textbook because they start to worry about what-if moments, which teachers like me worry about all the time. Now, what-if moments are moments when you ask yourself, what if a student asks me a question which I do not know the answer to? This is a worry legit and scary enough for anyone to want to be better. So what-if moments, they keep my junior tutors on top of their game. Unlike my mom, who would have to wait for me to have my own children to know what it's really like to be a mother, my junior tutors, they get really frustrated, and they would come up to me to tell me about how hard it is to be a teacher. I mean, it feels pretty good to finally have your kids, really understand what you have to go through every day in school. Seeing what empowerment could do to a child, we have bigger plans for the future. Now that we have gained the pace for the sprint, we need to make sure that we never lose that pace without ever falling behind again. Imagine if we could take this one step further. Imagine if we could take this beyond teaching and learning from each other, and start letting them make and create things together. What if we allow more flexibility by letting our kids take over their learning and teaching process? What happened when we introduce 21st century skills like programming and coding into the curriculum? What if we introduce more relevance and more purpose in their learning? And what if everything that they learn could be turned into an opportunity to give back to the community right away? I don't think we will ever see the true potential of our children until we put a little more faith in them through empowerment. I don't feel the richest on payday. I feel the richest after reading a book or after learning something new. But what I didn't know is that every time I teach, I feel 10 times richer. And that is what my children are feeling when they teach. I became a teacher because I thought I wanted to change those numbers myself. But what I didn't know was that making my students realize that they could change those numbers themselves is a much more powerful thing for everyone. So I'm going to leave you with a what-if moment. What if, instead of seeing challenges in our education system, we start to see them as an opportunity to make a difference? Thank you.